Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the February 24th episode of Days of Our Lives, and wow, Salem is on fire. We've got a kidnapping, a furious mother, a shady demare, and a heartbreaking pregnancy risk all colliding in one episode. Banko Tinjijusi Kang. This is pure soap chaos, and I love it. Stephanie has been kidnapped. Steve is hitting the streets to find his little sweetness. Kayla is absolutely unloading on EJ. And over in another corner of Salem, Channel's high-risk pregnancy is sending everyone's anxiety through the roof. That he and Roy. This is exactly the kind of episode where every scene feels like a mini cliffhanger. And just when you think that's enough drama, the spoilers and photos confirm that Jeremy is holding both Stephanie and Alex captive, while EJ discovers a hidden bug in their picture frame. Chanel, meanwhile, suffers yet another pregnancy health scare with Paulina and Sarah by her side. Stephanie faces her kidnapper and her own choices. Let's start with Stephanie. She finally comes face to face with her kidnapper, the stalker she kept insisting she wouldn't let control her life. On paper, that sounds empowering, right? I refuse to live in fear, but let's be real for a second, that choice may have just put her directly in danger. She goes about her daily life, refuses to change her routines, and that gives Jeremy the opening he needs to grab her. I know a lot of fans love that Stephanie is strong and independent, but I'm going to be blunt. I think she underestimated how dangerous this guy really is. It reminds me so much of when Abigail pushed back against warnings about Gabby's manipulations years ago, that same mix of pride, trauma, and denial that ends up backfiring in the worst way. Jeremy, meanwhile, is creeping around Salem like a horror movie extra, black hoodie, lurking energy. The whole package, and now the photos confirm he reveals himself to Stephanie in captivity and even drags Alex in at gunpoint. That's not just obsession anymore. That's full-on control fantasy. He doesn't just want Stephanie. He wants power over her, over Alex, over the narrative. Steve and Alex, two very different heroes. With Stephanie missing, Steve kicks into full investigator mode. He's out searching for his daughter, drawing on decades of experience chasing kidnappers, criminals, and every kind of psycho Salem can produce. And honestly, it hits hard if you've watched him all the way back in the days when he and Kayla were tracking down their kidnapped baby in Australia. This is what Steve does when his family is in danger. The Apache dad turns into a relentless hunter. Then we've got Alex. And this is where it gets juicy. Spoilers say Steve and Alex are both looking for their missing girl, but Alex is mostly fuming, stomping, and throwing around empty threats. I know some fans love Alex's intensity, but I've got to say it, yelling "I'll kill you if you touch her" means nothing if you're not actually doing the hard work Steve is doing on the ground. That said, I do think this storyline is quietly reshaping Alex. Remember when he was just the charming playboy, bouncing from bed to bed? Now he's emotionally invested, desperate, and way out of his depth. It reminds me a bit of Brady's evolution after his addiction storyline, a guy who was once kind of a mess becoming more layered through trauma and responsibility. If the writers stick with this, we might actually see Alex evolve into a more grounded, long-term legacy character, not just the hot complication. Kayla vs. EJ, misplaced rage or righteous fury. Now let's talk about one of my favorite parts of this episode, Kayla absolutely going off on EJ. Tuyat Vi. With her daughter in danger and no way to directly fix it, Kayla channels all that fear into anger at EJ, whom she has always suspected of having shady intentions toward the hospital. Here's the thing, she can't actually prove anything. The spoilers literally say she can't prove it, but she can say it loudly, and she does. And honestly, I get it. This is such a realistic human reaction. When you're powerless in one area like your missing child, you grab onto whatever target is closest that you can confront. And you know what? I'm on Kayla's side emotionally, even if her logic is shaky. EJ has been conducting secret experiments in a hidden hospital lab. And now there's a bug discovered in Alex and Stephanie's picture frame that may have been sent by him. That is shady behavior even by Demara standards. But here's the kicker, I don't think EJ is behind the kidnapping at all. I think he's playing his usual morally gray Demara games, but Jeremy is the real immediate threat. So Kayla blasting EJ might be satisfying, but it also might be a distraction from the real danger. It echoes old storylines where Salem focused all their fury on Stefano or Kristen, only to realize there was a different villain pulling strings in the background. EJ, the Bug, and the DiMera legacy of surveillance. Speaking of EJ, the Bug in the picture frame is classic DiMera-style spying but with a twist. EJ may discover the listening device in Alex and Stephanie's framed photo, and the implication is that it looks like it came from him. Whether he planted it or he's being framed, this taps straight into the long legacy of DiMera surveillance, secret labs, hidden cameras, microchips, you name it. It instantly calls back to Stefano's reign, how he'd track, manipulate, and control people from the shadows. EJ has always walked that line between ruthless DiMera heir and occasionally decent partner or father. So I think this story is less about did he bug them, and more about can anyone ever fully trust a DiMera. My take. If you trust a DiMera with your life, you're asking for a plot twist. I also wouldn't be shocked if this bug ends up being tied to a larger network, maybe Clyde's contacts or another unseen enemy using DiMera tech and reputation as a shield. That's the kind of long game Days loves to play. Chanel and Sarah trauma, motherhood, and a terrifying pattern. Now, let's jump over to the hospital, where the emotional stakes are just as high but in a completely different way. Chanel's pregnancy is still considered high risk, and she bonds with Sarah over their shared experiences as mothers. And honestly, this is one of my favorite aspects of the episode, because it's not just drama, it's deep character work. Sarah's history is brutal. She had to give up Mackenzie, who turned out to actually be Rachel after a devastating baby switch, and then process the truth that her real Mackenzie had died shortly after birth. That storyline was one of the most emotionally cruel arcs in recent Days history. It changed Sarah forever. Chanel, on the other hand, has already been through a miscarriage, and now her current pregnancy keeps throwing up red flags. She's facing the fear of history repeating itself. On top of that, there's the looming possibility that Sophia, unstable, resentful, and deeply obsessed with Trey, could endanger Chanel's baby or even Trey himself. Some spoilers have already teased that Sophia's plot could put both Chanel and the baby at serious risk, maybe even leading to a second miscarriage scare. And you won't believe what happens next emotionally. Chanel and Sarah find common ground, not just over motherhood, but over the horror of losing a child or almost losing one. For me, this is where Days shines, when it lets women talk honestly about grief, guilt, and survival. Stephanie's past versus her present history repeating. Let's circle back to Stephanie's story and connect the dots with the past. Stephanie has actually been through kidnapping trauma before as part of Steve and Kayla's long family saga. They once had to track down a kidnapped Stephanie overseas. This current storyline feels like a tragic echo, only now she's an adult, and the decisions that lead her into danger are her own. She insisted she wouldn't live in fear, dismissed the stalker as just another threat she could handle, and now she wakes up in an unknown location, tied up, with Jeremy looming over her. That's a brutal wake-up call, literally and emotionally. I'd argue the writers are making a point about how trauma doesn't just vanish, it mutates. People like Stephanie often convince themselves that being strong means pretending they're fine right up until the moment everything collapses. And bringing Alex in at gunpoint. That's an extra twist of psychological torture. Jeremy isn't just targeting Stephanie physically. He's targeting her emotionally, punishing her through the person she loves. That's very much in line with past villain behavior. Think Jan Spears going after Sean in Belle, or Kristen targeting Brady through his relationships. The obsession is never just romantic, it's territorial. Channel's future, my theory. Now let's talk theories, because I know you guys love speculating as much as I do. With Channel's high-risk pregnancy and her history of miscarriage, plus Sophia's unstable behavior and fixation on Trey, I honestly think we're heading straight for a massive baby in danger cliffhanger. I don't necessarily think the writers will make Chanel lose another baby, that might be too much, but I do think they want her and Johnny to go through another life or death hospital scare, where every heartbeat counts. My theory: Sophia might try to rescue Trey or confront Chanel. Something goes horribly wrong, and Chanel ends up hurt or in premature labor. This would force Johnny, Paulina, and Sarah to rally around her in a huge emotional set piece. And it would push Chanel into a new phase of maturity as a character, from carefree bakery owner to battle-scarred mom fighting for her child. And if they actually bond Sarah and Chanel long-term as friends and confidants over shared baby trauma, That could become one of the strongest female friendships on the canvas. Zooming out, this episode isn't just random drama. It's shifting Salem's power lines. The Johnson family is under direct attack with Stephanie's kidnapping. The DeMeras are once again playing with fire through EJ's shady hospital dealings and surveillance. The Price, the pre-DeMera family is on emotional edge with Channel's health and the threat to her pregnancy. I personally think all of this is laying the groundwork for a bigger umbrella story, EJ versus Kayla versus Paulina, with Steve and Alex caught in the middle. Imagine a full-scale war over ethics power, and who actually protects Salem, the hospital, the DeMeras, or the ordinary families. And let's be honest, I'm absolutely here for Kayla versus EJ. I love seeing Kayla drop the sweet doctor facade and turn into a mama bear, even if her aim is a little off. EJ deserves to be dragged, even if he's not the one who put Stephanie in that warehouse. So yeah, this February 24th episode is stacked. Stephanie confronting her kidnapper, Steve and Alex on a desperate hunt, Kayla tearing into EJ, Sarah and Chanel bonding over painful motherhood journeys, Jeremy escalating his control, and Channel's pregnancy fate hanging by a thread. Crazy, right? Do you believe Stephanie made a huge mistake by refusing to change her habits for safety, or was she right not to let fear win? Is EJ just being a typical DeMera, or is he being unfairly blamed this time? And do you think the writers will actually put Chanel through a second devastating loss, or will this baby finally be her miracle? Drop your theories in the comments. Tell me who you're siding with: Team Kayla's rage, Team EJ shade, or Team save Stephanie at all costs. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more deep dive, emotionally biased, totally invested Days of Our Lives breakdowns every week.